President Biden in southwest Wisconsin today announcing a multi-billion-dollar investment in electricity for rural areas. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more from the White House.
President Joe Biden is announcing $7.3 billion in new infrastructure investments while in Westby, Wisconsin on Thursday. Now, the money is going to 16 different corporations that's going to be spread across 23 different states. They'll be used to purchase projects, including renewable energy sources like wind, solar, and nuclear. Now, the goal of it all is to make internet cheaper in hard-to-reach areas.
It's the most significant transformative investment in electrician and electrification and clean energy for rural America since FDR's New Deal. You're the backbone of this country. You deserve the same resources as folks in our cities and our suburbs. And that's what today's announcement is all about. Generating rural power for rural America.
Now, the funding comes from the Inflation Reduction Act, which was championed by congressional Democrats back in August 2022, but very much opposed by Republicans. But why is Biden doing this now? Well, the White House says that this is part of his Investing in America series, where he's touting his successes in his Biden administration for investing in infrastructure projects like replacing corroded lead pipes, as well as building offshore wind farms. Now, this is Biden's first visit to Wisconsin since he dropped out of the presidential race and endorsed Kamala Harris. The election hinges on swing states like Wisconsin. Biden won the state back in 2020 by about 20,000 votes, and former President Trump won the state back in 2016 by a very slim margin there. Reporting from the White House, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Former President Trump's attorneys in Washington, D.C. today to enter his not guilty plea in his 2020 federal election case. And Hunter Biden in a Los Angeles courtroom where he reportedly surprised federal prosecutors by offering to change his plea to guilty in his California tax case. Joining me now to discuss these latest legal developments is Will Trackman, General Counsel for the Mountain States Legal Foundation, and former Indiana Attorney General Curtis Hill. Thank you both so much for joining us. Will, I'd like to start with you. Hunter Biden changing his plea today in his federal tax evasion case. It's a rarely used plea, from what I understand, called the Alford plea. If you could break it down for us and explain for us what this is and why he's using it.
Well, it's a little bit softer than a guilty plea. So when you make an Alford plea, or a nolo contendery plea, basically you're saying, I'm not going to put on a defense. I admit that I can't really establish my innocence or the fact that I'm not guilty. I'd rather not plead guilty. I don't like using those words, but it has the same effect. When you make an Alford plea, you are essentially pleading guilty in all but name. And it gives a defendant a little bit of face saving, but in essence, it's the same. It's not like you can appeal the nolo contendery plea. It just proceeds as though it were a guilty plea.
Curtis, I'd also like to get your thoughts on this. You've seen many a case yourself. Jury selection was also set to start today. What do you make of the timing, and do you think that a plea deal could be in the works?
Well, I think the timing is very interesting. I don't know if there's a plea deal in the works or not. I'm in Indiana, and Indiana is one of 3 states that doesn't do the Alford plea. It's a legal fiction to go in and enter a plea of guilty and then to indicate that you still maintain your innocence doesn't make any sense. And that's why I'm sure that prosecutors are saying, stop, hold on a second, we're not going to just go ahead and let this happen, because this is also about the PR, the making sure that the public gets a spin on Hunter's action. So what we really need to see is a plea to the charges or a trial full out on the charges so that we can have an indication one way or another of exactly what happened.
And now pivoting to the federal 2020 election case against former President Trump here in Washington, D.C. today. You had Judge Tanya Chutkan setting a date for the trial after the election, although she said that the election was not a factor. Will, how do you see this playing out in the coming weeks or months?
Well, clearly Jack Smith is aggressive. He filed a superseding indictment only months after the Supreme Court ruled that official acts can't be charged. So he is taking an aggressive posture with President Trump. Obviously, the fact that the election is in the middle is lost on no one, whether or not they admit it. But the judge has a role, and she's saying, I'm not going to care about the election. I'm only going to play it by the book. But I do think that if President Trump wins in November, this goes away. And if he doesn't win in November, it might also go away. It might be partly for the election consequences. That's why Jack Smith is potentially rushing the case. But it could be, bad PR for President Trump. But we certainly won't get a resolution on this case anywhere near the election.
Now, former Attorney General Hill, the court has to work out how the Supreme Court's immunity ruling may affect this case. Special Prosecutor Jack Smith appears to want to submit legal briefings, and Trump's defense also wants hearings. How do you think that this will all play out?
Well, I think everybody is taking the lead from the court that suggests that you have to make a determination of whether the acts are official acts of the president or unofficial acts, and so that's sort of recalibrated the process at this point. I think it's imperative that the Trump defense team do everything it can to demonstrate that this is connected to the president's official conduct or official acts. But I think when it comes down to it, this is all about the election. I agree that once the election is held, win or lose, these cases have far less significance because I think that the cases were brought for the purpose of shifting the thought processes on the election itself.
And Will, just briefly, a lot of the lead up and these different briefs that are filed, the back and forth, can be seen as kind of small victories, if you will. Who do you think won today, if there were any winner, in Judge Chutkan's court?
Well, I'm a lawyer, not a political strategist. I have to acknowledge that I saw that Jack Smith wants to file what look like classified documents on the docket, which, if you were considering that as a Trump defense attorney, might give you a little bit of heartburn because they're trying to introduce something that's classified but yet unofficial. They have to know that the Supreme Court wouldn't allow an official act. So if there are classified documents where Trump is doing something unofficial, that looks a little quirky to me. And so I'm a little bit worried if I'm the defense attorney for President Trump. On the other hand, I have a very strong Supreme Court case that just got handed down a few months ago saying official acts don't count. So I'm looking very closely. I'm scrutinizing every allegation to see if I can tie it to an official act of President Trump from 2021.
Curtis Hill, give you the last word. Any winners or losers today in the courtroom in D.C.?
Well, I think whether it's in the courtroom, I think Hunter Biden's winning because I think it's very clear that he's made a deal with his old man to get him off the hook. I think that's the big play here. There's nothing of consequence coming from this plea. And if anybody thinks that Joe Biden's not going to pardon his son, let's see the Vegas odds on that one.
Will Trackman, Curtis Hill, really appreciate both of your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And after all the debate about the upcoming presidential debate, it's been decided, at least for now, the candidates' microphones will be muted after all. Host ABC says the rules have been set for the first debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump. NTD's Jason Blair has an update.
According to ABC, which is hosting the debate, both former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris have agreed to the rules for September 10th in Philadelphia. This includes muting a candidate's microphone when it's not their turn to speak. In the announcement Wednesday, ABC said that the debate will be 90 minutes long and will have 2 commercial breaks. There will be no studio audience, and only the moderators will be able to ask questions. ABC also said that they did the coin toss and Trump was the winner. He decided to make his closing statement last. In relation to the upcoming election, Liz Cheney says she'll be voting for Harris in November. According to reports, the former Wyoming congresswoman made the remarks while at Duke University, saying, "As a conservative, as someone who believes in and cares about the Constitution, I have thought deeply about this. And not only am I not voting for Donald Trump, but I will be voting for Kamala Harris." The brother of Governor Tim Walz, Harris's running mate, has also been in the spotlight after he made comments on Facebook last week about disagreeing with his brother's policies. Jeff Walz responded to a reply to one of his posts describing his brother as not the type of character you want making decisions about your future. Jeff Walz told News Nation in an interview on Wednesday that while he stands by his comments, he didn't have the intention of influencing voters. He said his post was more about clarifying that his views are different from his brother's because people were starting to assume he supported them. Jeff Walz also said he doesn't plan on formally endorsing Trump or any other candidate, nor do any campaigning against his brother. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
And ahead of next week's debate, former President Trump unveiling new economic plans for a potential second term. Those include a new commission to cut spending and an overhaul of the federal bureaucracy. NTD's Iris Tao, who's covering the Trump campaign, brings us an update.
Trump on Thursday unveiled a slew of economic policies, including creating a government efficiency commission to help eliminate fraud and cut government spending. Trump says Elon Musk has agreed to help lead this effort if he has time.
I will create a government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. We need to do it. Can't go on the way we are now.
Trump also vowed to slash government regulations and also to revoke all unused funds from President Biden's signature climate law, the Inflation Reduction Act.
For 4 straight years, I fought for American workers like I would fight for my own family. I took care of our economy like I would take care of my own company.
Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris this week proposed tax deductions for small businesses and also higher taxes on millionaires and corporations.
My plan will make our tax code more fair. Billionaires and big corporations must pay their fair share in taxes.
The two will clash directly next Tuesday on the debate stage. And tonight here in Milwaukee, Trump's allies, including North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum and Congressman Brian Stell, will hold a town hall on Trump's policies. Reporting from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.